everyone, and welcome to this webinar for AD office hours. We're going to talk about Agritecture Designer today. We're going to be talking about all the tips and tricks that I can show you as a super user of AD and as the product manager here. And what I'll start with is just explaining what Agritecture Designer is and who it's meant for. So as you can see, Agritecture Designer is the world's first commercial farm planning software. And we're really excited to share this with as many people as possible and help them in their process of planning farms, right? So we know that in the CEA industry, in the indoor farming industry, it's hard to get data, right? A lot of people can come into our industry and they're really excited to get started. They have all these great ideas and they just want to know, what will my payback period be? How much CapEx am I going to have to invest to get this project to happen? How much am I going to pay every year? What's my revenue going to be? They want to see these financial numbers. They want to see how much yield will they be able to get. And that's why we've created Agritecture Designer, to open up the access to this type of data and to really get that integration and set those standards for the industry, so that anyone who's interested in learning about this or in exploring a solution in the indoor farming space, they can come to Agritecture Designer, and for a very cheap price, they can right away start modeling farms. So let's go ahead and show you the first tool that I want to get into today, and that's the ballpark estimate tool. Now with this tool, what you're going to see is that it's a very simple 4-input tool. So let's say we want to model a herb vertical farm with high automation level, and it's 10,000 square feet. Only 4 inputs, very simple. And if I hit get estimates, it's going to give me a range of CapEx that it thinks this vertical farm is going to cost, right? So for a 10,000 square foot vertical farm, 5 to 6 levels, we're going to expect anywhere between 2.25 and 3.75 million dollars as a starting point. Now that's a pretty expensive CapEx, right? So let's see if we can model a greenhouse for a little bit cheaper. Let's grow strawberries. Let's make it a low automation greenhouse. And let's even up the size to 20,000 square feet. And now we see a much lower CapEx cost here of 621,000 as a minimum, all the way up to 1.5 million. And lastly, I would also love to show you guys a container farm. Let's select vining crops here, and let's select 5 containers. And you'll see here that we have a projection of 625,000 to 1.25 million. And so what I'm really trying to show with this tool is the first step that users can take in this journey with Agritecture Designer. They can come on here and see, and with just 3 or 4 clicks, how much will this farm cost me to build, right? So it puts your mindset, gets your mindset thinking about the ranges of expected prices, right? But what I really want to do is go forward here and show you the basic model input form. So let's go back and talk about greenhouses again. Let's say we want to grow microgreens in a medium automation greenhouse, and let's this time do 1,000 square meters. I'm going to update the estimates again, but this time I'm going to hit continue, and that's going to allow us to answer just 2 more questions. Once again, we're not trying to overload you with too many questions that you might not know the answers to at this stage. We're trying to make everything as simple as possible. So it's just going to ask me, do I own the site in mind? And let's say we do. And let's say we're going to do this greenhouse in Lagos, Nigeria. So it's going to load up that, and I'm going to hit see results. And I just have to make sure that I'm logged in here. So sorry about that. Let me just log into the correct account. And let's go back out to that ballpark estimate page. Let's fill out that greenhouse again with microgreens, medium automation, 1,000 square meters, owned in Lagos. And as soon as I click see results here, what we're going to see is that in the back end, it's going to calculate all the aspects of a greenhouse model that you might want to know, right? And so in this case, this is a great deal, right? We already know if you can actually manage to sell microgreens in Lagos, Nigeria for $10 a pound, you're going to be doing really great. However, maybe this isn't a very realistic price, right? It's a default price. So we do advise our users to always come in here to the crop pricing section and click this little pencil. Once you do that, you can change the sale units of your crop. You can change the pricing of your crop to a custom price. So let's do something more realistic for Nigeria. I don't really know. I haven't done my market research there, but let's say it's $7.5 per pound. If I hit save on this, you're going to see that the numbers change a little bit. Now, it's not very significant, and my payback period still looks pretty good. So anyway, let's explore some of the other features we can see on this project report page. Firstly, you're going to see the max annual revenue that you can generate per year, right? And how is it calculating that? If we actually go to the annual summary tab, we can see that we have a total yield expected per year for each of our crops. Now we only have the microgreens pre-shoots crop here. And you can see that it's going up every year as the wastage goes down. Now, why is that? In Agritecture Designer, we're assuming that as your operation grows, your knowledge is also going to grow, your head growers are going to become more experienced, and you're going to squash those inefficiencies that might be in your system early. So we reduce the wastage percentage steadily over the years so that you can eventually reach your maximum yield of 213,000 pounds of pea shoots, right? What else? We can also see on this page, this is a full 15-year financial summary, right? It's a full model, and you can export this to Excel directly and put it into your models. I'll show you that in a moment. But I just want to go over some of the fields here. We went over the yield and wastage. We have the cost of goods sold plus OPEX to come up with this running total. And then we also have kind of the rest of the financial stats leading down to this net profit. And as you can see, you're going to make a profit in the first year, and you're almost going to be able to pay off this whole greenhouse. Now, let's go also take a look at CapEx and OPEX and see what are we exactly being charged for, right? So we have these two tabs here, the CapEx breakout and OPEX breakout. And what you're going to see as soon as you come into this tab is it's broken down in all the different categories that you're going to have to spend on in order to make this greenhouse a reality, right? You can also see this as a visual graph here. So we see that automation and processing is one of our biggest costs, right? And if we look here, it's almost 400K just on automation and processing. Well, I don't want that, right? I've decided we're in Nigeria, we have cheap labor. Let's go ahead and make this a low automation greenhouse. So I'm going to hit edit project, and we're going to be taken to this form where it may seem a bit overwhelming, right? But you don't have to edit every single one of these inputs, right? But let's say you wanted to change your crop, you could do so here. So instead of microgreens, let's say we want to grow now collard greens. And instead of ebb and flow system, we want to grow it in NFT. And instead of medium automation, we're going to go to low. So now let's go scroll down to the bottom and hit see results and see how this affects our overall project economics, right? Now what we see is our payback period actually went up by a lot. And can anyone tell me why? Why did the payback period go up so much when we changed the crop and the automation type? Can anyone tell right off the bat? You can answer in the chat. Why did the payback period go down so high? Alejo says low tech. That's correct. That's one of the reasons. And here we go. Johnny says crop price. And you two are both exactly right. Those are the two factors that came into play here, right? So because it's low tech, it actually is going to reduce our total CapEx cost. So that could theoretically reduce the payback period as well. However, if you look at the crop pricing here, we're now selling our crop for $3 per pound. And we also know that collard greens are not as productive as microgreens. Microgreens are one of the most productive crops, and you can sell it at a high price. So this is a more realistic model for if you're growing leafy greens or something like that in Nigeria, where you know there's going to be the demand for that crop, right? Because if you're growing something novel like microgreens, you don't always know, is there enough demand in the market for that crop to sell all of it? So anyhow, I'll go down to the automation and processing tab, and you can see that it's only 2,000 this time. So we've saved a lot of money on that. Now let's also take a look at something specific like lighting. Some of our users were asking about lighting, right? So what you can see here is the type of fixture that's been selected, and you can have all the specifications of it, right? Now, when I open up these tabs in Grow System, lighting, heating, all of these, what I'm doing is something called advanced mode. It's a feature that's only available for pro users. And we highly encourage you to look into this feature if you're on the pro account, or if you're on the light account, take a look at how I use it now and see if it could help you. We have the power, 83 watts per fixture. We have the efficiency, and we have the number of fixtures for this farm, which is 139. But let's say I go to LG and they cut me a deal and they say, you know what, Nadim, we've known you for a long time. Instead of 150 per fixture, we're going to sell you your lights at $120 per fixture. So I can put in that number and calculate, and just like that, I've reduced the total lighting cost in the capex of this farm. Similarly, if you have some cooling equipment, let's say, we can see that we're using a pad and fan ventilation system. The exchange rate is 1 exchange per minute. And then we have the total area that this pad and fan system is covering. And we have the price per area is 69 cents. Now let's say you get a good deal from Siemens and you put in 50 cents. And just like that, you can update your price. So you can do this for most of the fields here in advanced mode in the CapEx breakout. Anything that you see this little caret on, you can actually open it and edit in that way. Now, similarly with the OpEx, which are the recurring costs that you're going to be confronted with. For water, for example, you can open it up and see for each of these line items, how much water am I using, right? So my employees are using 12,000 gallons of water per year. It's only costing you $31 at the end of the day, so that's probably fine. Your reservoir flush is only costing you 16, you're probably fine with that. Is there a way you can make this tray cleaning more efficient and maybe reduce the cost there? Do you have a government rate for agriculture and your water rate is actually lower? You can edit it right there. And lastly, I'd also like to show you the labor model. And what happens here is basically it breaks down the tasks in the farm by job. So seeding, crop management, material handling, etc. And it tells you how many full-time employees are you going to need for each of these jobs, right? And you're only going to need 0.21 of a head grower. So you're not going to need that much head grower time. But let's say we want to run a simple operation here, and we want to separate out all the tasks with 1 full-time employee on each of those tasks. I can calculate that right here, and my labor cost gets updated. So there's a lot of stuff worth looking into in the advanced mode. I want to go over the custom crop pricing again, just to show you guys. We can set our price to our sale unit to 250G, and for that we're going to sell it 250 per 250G, and there we have it. We can set that. It becomes a custom price. I'm going to take a pause here to answer any questions that you may have, and then once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and move to the crop pricing tool, and we have a few other tips and tricks to cover. But I'll just stop briefly for any questions on what I've discussed so far. And I'm going to scroll back in the chat a little bit because I do see some questions here. So Alain is asking, he would like to know what LED lamp to use to grow lettuce and herb seedlings. What software could you use to run the farm? What varieties should you use for field or high-tech seeds? And where to buy those seeds? So Alain, those are some great questions right there. And for you, I would absolutely recommend talking to our client success manager, Luke. So if you see here on the dashboard section, and now's a good time to kind of touch base on this dashboard section, you can see that you'll have a list of tasks that we advise you to complete, right? So for example, crop research is one of the things we want you to do. Learning in our education module that's located in the Knowledge Hub tab, modeling your farm, etc. Now, as you can see here on the right-hand side, we encourage all of our users to speak with our client success manager. His job is basically to ensure that you have the resources and the tools you need to go forward with your planning of your farm, right? We're totally invested in your success, and that's our #1 priority. So if it means we have to go above and beyond and use Excel modeling or use some other, or speak to vendors on your behalf or find you seed prices, we will do that because ultimately what we want is for more vertical farms to be built, more indoor farms in general to be built. So for you, Ala, I would highly recommend speaking with Luke. But to also touch on some of your other questions, what softwares could we use to run the farm? We are actually coming up very soon, and let me just refresh this page, with a new section in our partner network called service providers, which are actually going to include some online software providers. Excuse me, guys, you see I'm a bit sniffly today. I'm just going to take a break to blow my nose, and then I'll be right back to answer some more questions. Okay, back to continue answering questions. So when we come out with that service provider tab, you will see it here as a third tab in the financing, after the financing partners. And what that'll allow you to do is see any of our partners who offer software for running farms. So that's coming very soon. In the meantime, I would like to show you a little bit about the partner network and the new filtering feature that we just added. Through Agritecture Designer, what we really want to do is present you with a lot of options in getting some equipment from your farm if you're ready, if you're at that stage, and to make those inquiries to our partner network. So we've recruited a bunch of equipment manufacturers and vendors who we believe are the most reputable in the industry. We've done background checks on all of them. We have criteria. They have to have at least 1 year fully operational commercial operation in order for us to get them on board. They have to share their data with us so that we can tell that they've had third-party trials, they've had people testing their system, etc., and that all their claims are validated by us. So they have to pass all those checks just to get into the partner network. But once they're there, you can come on here and see their profiles, and you can scroll through them like this, and you can see their operation types and their requirements and their timeline from sale to install, minimum budget, all this info about them. Or you can come up here and say, look, I am in the European region. I am only looking for greenhouses and I want a turnkey system. I apply these and I can see right away, we have some very promising partners for this. We have Novagric, which is a Spanish greenhouse company. We have Crop King, we have TTA. These are all very reputable companies in our network. So if I go ahead and click view company profile, what you're going to see is the contact, the main contact for this company. And Luke can put you in touch with this person. And then you're also going to see a description, key value proposition, and then several sections here, just giving some more background on this company so that you feel that you know this company before you get into bed with them, before you do business with them. You can really take a look at who you're doing business with, right? So we have sections on sustainability and ESG, we have sections on customer service, and etc. Now, if you're pleased with this and you say, look, I want a greenhouse, this seems to fit my plan overall, I'm going to request quotes. You're going to see this pop up, and it's basically going to say, listen, this is the process that we are going to follow as you go for the quote requests. First, you're going to submit the request, and then Luke will see the request. He'll send it over to the partner, and he'll connect you two with an intro call. Once that happens, we're going to make sure that you and the partner can get on the same page, and we're going to facilitate the passing of quotes and business models back and forth until you're both satisfied and you agree on something, and we can move forward with the equipment purchase. So we do also recommend that you read our quoting guide, which I do want to show you as well. And this quoting guide has been put together by our lead agronomist, David Caesar, just basically answering any questions regarding quoting, because the quoting process can be a little bit confusing sometimes, it can be long, and we're also here to streamline that process and make it easier for you. If you want to get quotes from several partners at the same time and compare them against each other and haggle them down, we're all for that, and we help you with that. Luke will help you get as many quotes as you like from our equipment network. Okay, so going ahead, moving on, I would like to also show you the education section. Now, what you're going to find when you go into this section is a master class on commercial urban farming, which is taught by our own agritecture staff, including our CEO and founder, Henry. And you can see that within each of these sections, which talk about different things, there are certain modules, and each of the modules focuses on a specific subject, right? So in this case, it's a case study on farm 1, smallhold, square roots, and arrow farms, which are some different sized farms in the New York area. And so we really recommend that all of our users take a look at these lessons. There's a lot in there. There's over 160 minutes of content right there. And it's a really good intro into the CEA industry. And this is available to light and pro users. Now, if you've finished these classes, but you're still curious and you want to learn a little bit more, we now have our advanced modules. We have an industry update from last year from Henry. And we know that the industry is in a very interesting time lately. So this is a good one to watch. And then we have a few modules that dig deeper into some of the technical aspects of our modeling tool. So I heavily advise everyone to take a look at these, and the advanced lessons are available right now for pro users. So if you do have pro, I highly encourage you to take a look at this. If not, finish the first courses first and see if you still have a thirst for more knowledge. Then I would advise you to look here. Now let's go over a few other things I want to touch on, which is crop pricing. So as you see here, this is our market research tool. This tool allows our users to go out into the real world and get data on their crop pricing in their local region so that they can make educated decisions about what prices to use in their models, right? So let's go back to that example of our greenhouse in Lagos, where we were growing collard greens. So let me go ahead and select collard greens here, and I'll add crop. What I'm going to see is 3 product evaluations come out, right? And what this is saying is, Nadim, please go to the grocery store or to the farmer's market or to the boutique grocer and find some collard greens and say how much did you pay for them. Let's say we paid $5 for them and we got 500 grams. And the quality of that, they were pretty good. They were about a 4. And the packaging for that, there was no packaging. I just took them straight from the supermarket. And the outlet was selling that price. And it did not have any labels on it, right? Then we went to the farmer's market. And we found another one. It was more expensive. It was $5. Or sorry, it was $6. And it was for 250G. But the quality was phenomenal. The packaging was in a plastic bag, and it was organic, local, and pesticide-free. And then I can also do this a 3rd time, and we recommend our users to do it at least 3 times. You can also even do it up to as many times as you want, right? And the more data, the better, always. But we're good with these 2 for now. So let's go ahead and say we want to sell our sales unit at 150G, and we want to sell it direct to consumer. So let's go ahead and calculate. And it's going to tell me that I should sell my collard greens at $3.28 for 150G. Now, this is all hypothetical data, of course, but if you actually did this and went out into the real world, our algorithm in the background, it would take into account things like the quality score, where you purchased it, the sales unit, the type of packaging, etc. And it comes up with the optimal price for you to sell it at. Once I have these, you can always change these values later, but I'll hit continue, and I'll select that farm that we just created, Microgreens Greenhouse Nigeria, and I'll add project and I'll submit. So now within my crop library, I have collard greens here for the price that we just discussed. So now if I go back into my farm models and I open up Microgreens Greenhouse Nigeria and I click crop pricing, I can actually hit calculated here and it'll automatically load in my set price, and I'll just click the correct sales unit and boom. There we have it. So this is how you edit your crop pricing through market research on the Agritecture Designer tool. Now I'm going to pause here again to take any more questions, and I'm going to do a quick nose blowing break. Thank you for your patience. I do see one question in the chat. Chris Walker is asking, does this include real estate purchase? And in fact, it does. So in the CapEx section, and I see that you have to run, Chris, I'm answering your question now, but if you don't have time, go ahead, reach out to us later, and we'll do a whole session for you specifically, and we'll talk about rent. But you can see the rent section here, and you can actually edit the input on your land status to see whether you're owned, looking to buy, looking to rent, and you can put in, $5,000. Now, what profit margin are we looking at? Jenny has this question. So the margin, let's see if we actually have that written down here. And I don't think we've actually calculated the margin here, which would basically be the waste adjusted revenue subtracting out the COGS. And that would be the net profit. So yeah, we do actually have the net profit calculated here. So you can calculate the net margin by taking the net profit and just dividing it by the revenue. But if you want the gross margin, you can calculate the gross profit with another line item. So now this is actually a great segue, Jenny, and thank you for this question, into the export to Excel feature. Now this is again just for pro users, but once you do this, you'll see that I'll have a download right here in my download section, and I can immediately open that up. And let me just go ahead and change my screen sharing so that you can see it. I'll just share the entire screen. And so you should be able to see an Excel right now. And so what you're going to see here is the input page of the Excel sheet as soon as you download it. So it's going to give you things like, it's a greenhouse, the location is Lagos, Nigeria, the site area is this many square feet, the electricity cost, water cost, tax rate, and other inputs that you've selected in your model. You're also going to see what crops you're growing, and you're going to see a summary of the results. Total bed space, total capex. And then this is a number that a lot of our users ask us for. So if you are curious about this, definitely export to Excel. But you have the capex and opex per unit area, which we think is quite useful for people. And then we also have 4 additional tabs here, which mirror the tabs that are in Agritecture Designer. Right, so we have the operating summary, capex, opex, and annual summary. Right, so now going back to Jani's question, she wanted to calculate the profit margin, right? So let's calculate the net profit margin. And I'm no finance expert, but I believe that this is how it's calculated. And so that's a 19.7% margin. I click percentage here and drag it across. And you're going to see that the margin actually does increase over time. And let's go ahead and drag it all the way to year 15. And we can see that we end up at roughly 43%. And the reason it's going up is mostly due to the wastage, where the wastage goes down every year as you become more experienced in your farm and you're growing your specific crops. And then also you'll see here that the yield of the collard greens in the first year is probably not as high as the rest of the years due to things like getting your seeds started and the time that it takes to do that, etc. So anywho, this is how you export to Excel. I'm not going to save the changes right now, but we do encourage you to explore this feature in order to kind of do some more advanced modeling and to integrate your AD models in with other data sources and other models that you're doing outside of AD. So we do try to provide that flexibility for our users, even though most of what you need to do to plan a farm will be in Agritecture Designer. So that draws my presentation to a close on some of the best tips and tricks you can find in AD. I do have a few other things I want to show you, but I would like to get some discussion going and get some Q&A from the audience. So I'm going to pause for right now. I'm going to take some Q&A. And then if there's still time after that, I'll show you some container farms, because that's a new type of model that we've added pretty recently. And there's a lot of exciting developments happening in the container farms right now. We can even model mushroom farms right now as well, mushroom containers. So I'll show you all that in a few moments. But before that, I'll just stop and wait for any questions. And if anyone has any detailed questions, we can also invite them on to speak and open up a discussion that way. So please, any questions, I'm looking in the chat and I'm looking in the Q&A feature. So feel free to post it anywhere. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat or in the Q&A feature. So I'll go ahead and go over the container farms. And then if I can get one volunteer to walk us through their farming dreams, and we'll try to build out a farm that suits your scenario. So let's go for that. I do see one question just came in. So is there a place we can see all the assumed parameters? For example, the assumed heat transfer. So that one's a bit difficult. We do not expose that data to the end user. So what we actually have is there's a whole model happening, an energy model running in the background. However, one thing that you can see from that energy model is the amount of water transpired or the amount of water that goes into plant biomass, right? So that's probably the closest thing we have to heat transfer, but we do not show that data to the actual user. And that's because we have certain models and certain energy models that we run in the back end and that we don't necessarily want to expose that data to our users. And also because we don't want to confuse our users with too many advanced statistics. However, if you are curious about the energy model, I'd be happy to arrange a call between you and David, or you can email support@agritecture.com with your specific question. And myself, our client success manager, Luke, and our lead agronomist, David, all see this email. So if it's any question related to heat transfer or anything else technical, David will see it and he'll try to help you as best as he can. We have a question from Alain. How can we design our need for HVAC for lettuce? How much water is being produced by a lettuce plant? So that's, I guess, another harkening back to this plant biomass number. If you have your number of plant sites, then you can work backwards to get this plant biomass number per plant. And however, for our HVAC, you can actually come to the climate control section and the cooling section, right? So the heating, cooling, depending on what you have. In this system, we don't have any heating, but we do have cooling, and you can change the price per area for that. And then you can also change things for climate control. So this is really the dosing and the fertigation control more so than the climate. But it does also include cost per area and costs for ECPH control. We have a question from Rohan. We have a question from Jani. From how many countries do you have research data? Is South Africa included? Yes, so we actually have data on every single country in the world, as far as we know, right? So we have a big table, and that table includes things like the labor cost for South Africa, the electricity and water cost for South Africa, and something that we call a fruit veg multiplier, which basically means what is your produce costing and like what can people sell produce for in South Africa compared to the rest of the world, right? So we have all of those factors that we load in automatically. So let me go ahead and show you. As soon as I put edit project, and let's say I change this address to Johannesburg, it's going to immediately, if I scroll down to the bottom, override these costs, right? So it's going to give me farm worker labor rate of $2.45 per hour. I don't know if that's accurate in South Africa, but this is data that we've pulled from various sources. And you can always override this data if you have more accurate data in your region. I always tell the users that please feel free to override any of these if you have more accurate data. So for example, if Jani is telling me, no, it's actually 25% tax rate in South Africa, definitely override that. Rohan, do you have IoT integrated for all of these variables, electricity, water, etc., into the model? So no, we don't, not at the current moment. So if you're looking at these prices, these are prices without any monitoring IoT devices in there. So if you were going to add monitoring IoT devices for electricity, water, etc., you would need to add that in as an additional cost. So for that, I would export to Excel and I would add another section in the CapEx breakout. We have another question here from Ken. Are calculations for medical or recreational crop cannabis possible with Agritecture Designer? Not yet, Ken, but we are working towards that. We do want to include a cannabis model. Our main hang-up right now is that the lighting is so different between cannabis and food crops. And agritecture really does specialize in food crops. So, we just got the mushroom model up, which was our higher priority than cannabis, but our next priority is going to be cannabis. So we are trying to get that on as soon as possible because we know it's a big field. So yeah, we're working towards that, and we're working towards adding a bunch of new crops as well. So we will be expanding our crop list very soon. We have a question here from Roger. I'm buying a flower shop and nursery business in Northern Ontario, so weather is a limiting factor. I want a model to grow all year. Now, this is a great question. So what happens in Agritecture Designer when you select a very cold area? So let's go ahead and try to model for Roger. Let's put Roger's Ontario greenhouse. Excuse me. Let's go ahead and put this on Ontario. Excuse me 1 second. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're putting it in Ontario, Canada, right? We're going to keep it low automation. And what would you like to grow, Roger? Are you growing flowers, or you're growing a flower and nursery business? So let's say you're growing cherry tomatoes and you're going to sell them off as seedlings. So let's say you're going to use the slab system for that. And for the insulation level, that's one of the inputs I'd suggest you take a look at, Roger. For Canada, I would definitely select heavy duty. I would select heating. I would select supplemental lighting. CO2 injection, it's up to you, but I'm going to keep it selected for now. Grow experience, we can say high. And these overrides, again, if you see anything that looks unrealistic for Canada area or for Ontario, please feel free to update those. Let me just go scroll back and see if there's anything else here. So the automation level, we can decide how much we want it, but let's just say low for now. Yeah, you do have to get more specific. So for us, we only have data for just the Ontario region. We don't get that much more specific. Oftentimes we do it on the country level. But if you do have that specific data, we encourage you to override. And so here's what you see right now, Roger, is that with this setup, of course, you're not going to make money, but you have cherry tomatoes. You can maybe sell them for a higher price. Maybe if you're selling flowers, it's a much higher price. We don't have flowers or medicinal plants or ornamentals in yet, but we do want to include those. So we are coming up with a new massively increased crop database, which we believe will have some ornamentals in there as well. But let's just go take a look at your heating. And so what you're going to find is it's recommending 3 air heaters, which cost 1,600 a piece. So your total heating cost for the CapEx is going to be 4,800. Right now, it's also going to charge you a gas cost to use those heaters of 9,000 per year. Now, for you, Roger, what I would really suggest is actually going to the partner network and taking a look at, there's one partner in particular who I think will work really well with you, and that's Ceres. And the reason I say Ceres is because they are specialized in energy efficient greenhouses. Okay. So their whole purpose is they sell these glass greenhouses with ground to air heat transfer systems, which basically makes it much more efficient for you to heat your greenhouse. So they are a little bit pricey, but you're going to see that you're going to have energy savings, which are going to make up that price difference in no time. So I would highly recommend you to take a look at Ceres in our partner network, request a quote, chat with Luke, get an intro call with them, and see where that goes. I think it's a really promising idea. Growing flowers in Ontario, weather is a limiting factor. You want to grow year round. You're going to have much lower prices than people who are importing, probably. probably importing from Netherlands, potentially other areas as well. So I think it's a really good idea. And I definitely think you should get Luke's opinion on this, talk to Series, and we'll help you out with this one. Now we have another question here from Rohan. Do you have scientific data for modeling of plant biomass or water transpired, or is this data based on some algorithm? So we have scientific data on this, and basically our lead agronomist, David Caesar, this is his bread and butter. You know, he loves this stuff. He's been in agriculture for over 20 years, and you know, he's a master of all our models. So he really creates, he based on which type of plant it is, he knows exactly how much water transpired it's going to have per plant site, per hour, per day, etc. We put that into our energy model and it runs. So basically, it is based on scientific data. Whenever David does his research, he always checks for scientific papers and trials to make sure that he's actually getting accurate data. And however, we do have to remember that Agritecture Designer's purpose is not to give you an exact number, but to give you an estimate, to get you in the ballpark, to get you close enough to pitch this to investors, to take this to equipment partners, etc., to get financing. This is really to help you make that next step. So that is one thing I wanted to touch on. I think I got all the questions. If anyone has any more questions, please throw them in there. But until then, I'm going to show you one other thing that I really want to show you, which is container farms and how you can model those. So let me take one step back, actually. Once you click Start a New Project, you're going to see this screen. And it's going to ask you which type of input form do you want to use. If you click Advanced, you're going to come to this input form, which we were looking at before. It's the same form as the project edit page. However, what we've found is that it's a lot of information to put in, and sometimes our users don't know the answers to each of these questions before they've really done their research and when they're at this stage. So we created a new way to create a project from the basic model form. It's the same form that you saw before in the ballpark estimate, except it's all the 6 questions at once. And what I really want to show you here is container farms. Let's say we're doing microgreens, or let's say we're doing herbs actually. And let's say we want to do 20. Actually, let's keep it small for now so we can take a look at, let's take a look at just one container so we can compare apples to apples. And let's say we own the site. And where should we do this one? Should we do it in Johannesburg? And once you hit see results here, it's going to do something a little bit interesting. It's going to create for you as many template models as we have equipment partners that can actually satisfy those requirements, right? So right now you'll see 3 new projects were created for you. You have Let Us Grow, you have Zip Grow, and you have Urban Crop Solutions. These are all members of our partners in the partner network, right? So if you go here and you select Container Farm, you're going to see Urban Crop Solutions, Zip Grow, and Let Us Grow, which are the 3 that we looked at, as well as Harvest Limited. iFarm also has one. And so anyway, once you do that, you're going to have these 3 projects. And you're going to want to take a look at each one of them, right? So here we have Urban Crop Solutions, and you can see that the payback period on is 7.78 years. The total capex for one container farm is 336. Now, what are you going to see here as well? What's included in this container farm? So this is the cost you're going to pay to the company just for the container farm system, which includes lighting, includes HVAC, includes racking, includes CO2 injection. So it already includes all those categories, all in this price. But then you're going to also have seeding costs, which are outside of there, processing costs, transport, and installation. So totaling that all up. And then you're also going to have OPEX very similarly to the other models. Now, the last feature I want to show you is this compare multiple projects, where I can select all 3 of the container farms that we just modeled, and I can see how much are they each going to run me. So you see here, Urban Crop Solutions is the most expensive, then Zip Grow, then Let Us Grow. However, how do they compare in yield? We see that Urban Crop is the least. It's very comparable to Zip Grow, but Let Us Grow has the best yield out of these, right? In the payback period, you can see that Let Us Grow is winning hugely, right? However, you can also see in the annual water use, Zip Grow is much more efficient in water use than the other 2 competitors. So this is the type of thing that you can do to really compare and contrast some of the different models that you try, right? So it's just using this compare feature here. You can also do it and compare, you know, a greenhouse that we just created to a container farm. And we can see the big differences there. But of course, we want to be comparing apples to apples. We want to be comparing similar sizes, similar yields, something like that. But this is an underused feature that we think is very useful that we highly recommend you to look into. And that does bring my presentation to a close, but we have a few more questions which I'm going to get into now. So Jani is asking, have you tested with renewable energy? So we do have within these sections, we have in our OPEX section, the electricity cost, 12,308, right? So however you want to get that electricity, that's totally up to you. So let's go back into our greenhouse model actually. And let's say that we have 48,000 that we're paying for electricity each year. But let's say we want to use renewable energy instead, right? So let's say we're setting up solar panels on the roof, and I know they're going to cost me 100,000 to set up. But once they're set up, my electricity cost is going to go down to 0. That's totally fine. Calculate, and you're going to see in the OPEX breakout, your electricity cost is down to 0. So that's how I would model renewable energy in this. And then I would just add on another line item into the CapEx to account for that. Okay, we have, thank you, Rick. Thank you, Rick, take care. We have one more question from Radwa. Let's assume the farm is being modeled, fully equipped and operating successfully through Agritecture Designer software. Does the software provide problem solving or troubleshooting answers along the journey for each kind of crop? Thank you. At this point, no, it doesn't. And we don't think that that's going to be a feature that's coming anytime soon. However, if you're a user of Agritecture Designer and you've built a farm and you have it up and running, it's in our best interest that you do well. We want you to succeed. So we'll have Luke, we'll have Henry, we'll have the rest of our team check in with you and make sure you're doing well. And we actually have one farm that's recently been completed by Khalid Shoker, and he has installed his system with iFarm, and we're regularly checking in with him and making sure that everything's running smoothly. We make sure that the partner gets the delivery on time. If there's any issues with that, we talk to the partner. We say, look, you need to speed up this timeline. You need to do, etc. So we really want to work with all of our users, whether that's current, past, or future, in order to get them the best level of success that they can achieve. So truly, if you're in that situation, I highly recommend you speak with Luke. If you're having trouble selling your crop, Henry will do a marketing push for you. I mean, you have the whole Agritecture team at your disposal. And we really, look, at Agritecture, we have one mission. We want to get as many farms built as possible because we believe that this is the future. So anything that's in service of that, we'll go above and beyond the customer service to do. So we really encourage you. Feel free to reach out to us. Again, I'm going to type the support@agritecture.com email here because in truth, we really just want anyone to reach out to us, and we want to talk to as many people as possible and connect you to the right people. So don't be shy. Any of our users have access to Luke. We want him to speak to as many people as possible. If you're having technical issues, please contact me. I want to help you resolve those. Really, Agritecture is at your service to help with any of those things. So that's all the questions I see in the chat, everyone. Thank you for a wonderful session. I'm going to give you 1 or 2 more minutes to get any last things into the question box. I see one from Rohan here. Is your software useful for India? Yes, it is. It actually has prices for India as well. So let's go ahead and create a basic model in India. Let's call it a greenhouse selling. What do you want to grow? Let's grow some herbs. Let's do low automation. And let's keep it at 10,000. Let's say you own the site. And let's put it in Kerala. So if I click see results here, one moment. Right. So now what you'll have to do for India, Rohan, you're going to have to edit some of the inputs, right? So you're not going to sell basil for $12 in India, right? Let's say you sell it for $4. I don't really know. You're going to have to do the market research on your area, but you're going to have to edit that price. Then you're going to want to go into the edit project section and you're going to want to look down here. Do these prices look correct to you? Now, this is based on some research we've done, but we know that we can't get the exact right prices for every single person, every single city in the world. So if you know your water cost, if you know your electricity cost, tax rate, and farm worker rate, you can go ahead and throw those in. If you're not gonna have the owner as head grower, you're gonna need to pay the head grower a salary. Maybe in India it's closer to 4,100. I don't know, but the user has total control over those features. So please, with Agritecture Designer, it's in your hands. It's as much as you want to use it. I have a couple more questions here. One from Bruce. Does AD have a category for a 4-story building with a footprint of 85,000 square feet? Yes. So for that, I would advise you to go on here, start a new project. You can do basic or advanced. So let's say this is the easiest way to do it, right? Let's do basic, vertical farm, herbs, low automation. I own the site in mind. And where are you doing it, Bruce? Let's say you're doing it in New York. Click see results there. And then what you're going to want to do, as soon as it loads you into the project, hit edit. You're in Rosemount, Maryland. So let's go ahead and put that. Yep, we've got that. Click vertical farm. And then the most important inputs for you are here, right? So your footprint is 85,000. And your ceiling height, your number of stories is 4. So I'm going to go ahead and put, I think that's around 40 feet. Correct me if I'm wrong. But even the more important thing is selecting the number of grow levels. So if you're saying 4-story building, you can definitely have more than 4 grow levels, but let's just say you want to do 4. Right? Then you go ahead and click see results, and your situation is modeled. But if you want more help with that, Bruce, getting that into a place where it's ready to talk to investors, financiers, equipment partners, chat with Luke about that, with me and Luke, and we'll help you. Oh, Rosemount, Minnesota. Sorry, not Maryland. Is the webinar being recorded? I believe so, and we will send that out after. Are you already selling the software in Africa? Yes, the software is available worldwide. I see a lot of thank yous coming in. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your time for coming. And yeah, I really appreciate everyone for showing up and for taking this time to learn a little bit about Agritecture Designer. What our goal, again, with this is really to get as many people in the door. We want to get your foot in the door so that you can start having talks with equipment companies, so you can start getting your financing locked down, so you can start getting your customers ready to sell the crops that you want to sell them. And so don't forget all those useful tips and tricks I showed you. The key takeaways here: your crop pricing, you're going to have to pay attention to that. Go out into the real world, do market research, get realistic crop prices and put them in your model. You have the ability to override almost any input in Agritecture Designer, so take advantage of that. And you have the ability to speak to our client success team at any time that you want to, in order to help you through this process. So please take advantage of all that stuff. We are so excited to keep moving forward with Agritecture Designer and to speak to all of the users, the amazing users who came on today. So thank you so much for your time.